Welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Hello, David. How are you, sir?
Good. Also a diehard Bills fan. It's a good day to be a Bills fan.
There they go. Let me come back in 10 minutes.
We're happy to talk about that.
Let me just tell you, I think last night's performance with Josh Allen, not as anything but the MVP for this year if he continues on.
He's one of one, that's for sure. You know.
There you go. See, they did.
Good time to be alive and a good time to be a Bills fan.
Yeah. Well, okay, I'm a Bills fan. How about this? Because of you two, I'm a Bills fan. How about that?
Great.
Awesome. Welcome to the crew. Welcome to the Mafia.
For the whole year, I'm a Bills fan.
That's right.
All the way to the end. Okay.
All right. I like it.
All right. So
it's going to be a long season too, because it's going to go all the way to February.
All right. We'll see. So David is no stranger to Show Me the Money. He has been here before. Maybe over like a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. I'm not sure. We've been doing this for 2.5 years, so I lost track of time, David. But more importantly, I am sure, unless you're hiding under some rock, whatever, and you haven't seen the More Perfect Union video, David so the drivers were half of it, and David was the other half, talking about the legality of this algorithmic wage discrimination issue and many other things. So correctly, I mean, a lot of you sent me some questions, and I'm going to ask those to David, obviously. But when David was here last time, he was actually in litigation with Uber, and he also had brought on his 3 plaintiffs. And he can't go into too many details, but just for us to maybe 30 seconds, David, how did that end up? What happened? You don't have to give us the results, but how did that case get resolved?
Yeah, I mean, I think the core of it is, and we'll talk a lot more about the legal theory there. But the core of it is that our clients' claims were compelled into arbitration. Our clients opted out of the company's arbitration agreements in some cases, I believe, more than a dozen times. But because they were purportedly bound by an arbitration clause, and one of the first terms and conditions they entered into in signing up on the app, the district court compelled their claims into arbitration, right? Which I think helps to reinforce that, forced arbitration and arbitration clauses in these companies' terms and conditions is really very much part of their business model, and very much a part of their the broader goal of, from our perspective, trying to skate between the laws and evade liability. Because they can't be held accountable in court and can't be held accountable through class actions. They also, we have deep concerns about how the companies hold out the opportunity to opt out of the arbitration clause, when in fact, in many cases, that opportunity is a sham, right? I mean, you've got to opt out on, like I said, every single term and condition. They're sending multiple contracts in the course of a year, make it really effectively impossible for anyone to make a choice voluntarily to give up their right to go to court and their right to pursue class action claims against the companies. And because of how essential class actions are to holding dominant corporations accountable for corporate abuse, that arbitration clause in many cases operates as something close to a get out of jail free card. So those are our clients' claims were compelled into arbitration. We continue to investigate the issue, and it's not to say that we wouldn't be interested in pursuing private litigation going forward. But the other thing to emphasize is that public enforcers, including attorneys general offices and for example the Federal Trade Commission, aren't subject to arbitration.
Well, we tell our audience, because I'm a driver still, obviously, and every time I get one of these amendments or TOS changes, right, we always tell them how to opt out. So in this case, although your clients had opted out, still did not work out, I guess, right? Is that what happened?
It's exceptionally hard to opt out of every agreement. So I encourage people to exercise that contractual right, but also want to be transparent about the fact that the companies make it exceptionally hard to do so, right? Precisely because of how important this class action waiver and arbitration.
Yeah, because they bury it in the 30 pages of legal mumbo jumbo. It's always on the 27th or 28th page, and we always tell them how to do it. You have to do it within 30 days. But some people do it, and some people fall through the cracks. But it's still difficult. But so let's put that away for now. So this video that came out, that half of it was the drivers testing for algorithmic wage discrimination, and the other half was you talking about the legality of the issue, right? And so I'm actually thrilled that this video just broke 3 million views, because that means it completely went mainstream. It's 3 million. It wasn't 3 million drivers watching this. It was a lot of probably government officials watching this, a lot of legal minds watching this, a lot of consumers watching this, because that's mainstream. And they're going to figure out, because personally speaking, I believe algorithmic discrimination is happening more on the rider side than it is actually on the driver side. But you said, yeah,
both on the rider and driver side, right? I mean,
yeah.
That's what.
So you said something, when you were just in the first snippet that you came on the video. You said drivers should not be considered independent contractors. So can you, elaborate a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think that, and this is sort of has been core to our legal theory in the Gill case filed in California, and also in the legal theory that I described in the More Perfect Union video, is that the companies, it seems to us, are attempting to exploit a business model of having their cake and eating it too, right? On the one hand, saying, look, our drivers are independent; they're their own businesses, right? Independent entrepreneurs, right? And we're not responsible to them under the labor and employment laws. They don't have, the right to engage in, concerted activities and bargain with us collectively. They don't have the right to minimum wage. They don't have rights under the anti-discrimination laws. And at the same time, right, we're going to exercise all kinds of power over them to deny them their economic independence. And core to that economic independence under our competition laws, right, like the sort of fundamental, foundation of economic independence is price setting authority. The fact that the companies deny drivers price setting authority is, well, at the same time, suggesting that they are in fact independent and not owed, rights under our employment laws. That's in an illegal effort to have it both ways. And if in fact drivers don't have rights under the labor and employment laws, if they're not part of Uber and Lyft, then we allege that the companies can't deny them their independence, including by setting prices across purportedly independent drivers.
Okay. So, we have a wonderful community here, and they came up with a few questions. But before I get into those, so we do our surveys at the Rideshare Guy quite frequently, actually. And out of those surveys, there is one thing that is pretty common that we see, and it's the numbers haven't changed that much. So when we do a survey saying that, would you like to be an employee of these companies, or would you like to be an independent contractor? For one reason or another, overwhelming majority, 75 to 80%, want to stay independent contractors. Okay. But then the second part of the question is always, are you being treated like a true independent contractor? That goes the other way, 20-80, meaning 80% say, no, I'm not treated as an independent contractor. And that's what you basically are saying. So the definition of independent contractor, obviously a lot of people take it the way they want it, but there has to be a definition or legal definition. Can you help us with that a little bit? Like, what is a true independent contractor?
Yeah, I mean, first, let me respond to the first point. Yeah, I mean, of course, it doesn't, it shouldn't be a surprise that people want to be independent, right? Like, no one wants to have a boss, right? Bosses can, deprive you of your autonomy. Bosses can suck a lot of the time, right? Our core allegation is, and I think this is the experience of a lot of drivers, is, yeah, you want to be autonomous. You want to not have a boss, but you do have a boss, right? Your boss is in your pocket. Your boss is in the algorithms that control where, when, and how you do your work and how you set your prices. The question of whether somebody is an employee or an independent contractor is a question of labor and employment laws, and those are going to vary from state to state, from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, and they're going to vary depending on on the right at issue. For example, there may be different tests for whether someone is entitled to workers' compensation versus whether they're entitled to minimum wage, or they're entitled to protections under our anti-discrimination laws. The competition law piece comes in, right? Because if these companies are saying, well, no, you're not part of our company, you are not covered by any of these employment protections, then they have to give people genuine economic independence, right? And under the competition laws, that economic independence includes price setting, right? It includes the ability to set prices on their own. We also think the competition laws speak to other aspects of control exercised over drivers, including through hidden algorithms, including the ways that including through the ways that companies provide some information sometimes, right, to drivers that varying over time, depending, for example, on their acceptance rate, depending on their geography, all the ways in which the companies use the sort of hiddenness of their algorithm to control drivers. If in fact Uber and Lyft are right that their drivers aren't covered, right, by basic protections that apply to people, that apply to workers who are controlled by a dominant firm, right, and those protections are part of this deal that was struck in the 20th century and provided rights under all these basic laws, minimum wage, the labor laws, anti-discrimination laws, etc. Then we say then the competition laws that govern how you treat independent entities swing into play, and those competition laws prevent powerful companies like Uber and Lyft, who operate this powerful duopoly, from exercising their power and control in the ways they do.
One thing I always say is work smarter, not harder. If you aren't using the Solo app, then you may be working harder. So let's change that. Download the app, link your accounts where you can manage your income, track your expenses, and project your taxes. Not only that, but you can plan by optimizing your time, make more, and even guarantee your daily pay with guaranteed earnings. Download Solo and begin to work smarter, not harder today. Link is in the description. All right, let's get back to it.
The other, towards the middle of your section of the video, you also mentioned a couple things. One, you talked a little bit about antitrust, obviously, and then you talked a little bit about vertical price fixing, right? So I'm combining all the questions that I received after millions of people watched this video. A lot of drivers said, can you ask him about how this is antitrust, or can you ask him about how he would explain vertical price fixing?
Yeah, thanks for that. So let's talk about one of what I said is like one of the ways in which the companies are stripping drivers of independence, which is denying them price setting authority, right? So for many decades, right, as a matter of state and federal antitrust law, it was per se illegal for a dominant company to fix prices across purportedly independent entities, right? Whether they be distributors, retailers, etc. It was illegal as a per se matter, illegal to fix the prices that those independent entities charged to consumers. And that's what Uber and Lyft is doing, right? I mean, Uber and Lyft is as part of the trade-off that drivers are required to agree to when they contract with the companies. They're giving up the authority to set prices for customers. That's a sort of black letter vertical price fixing arrangement. Under federal law, currently, federal antitrust law, that type of arrangement is no longer per se illegal. So it's not illegal in all cases. It may still be illegal under the rule of reason, which is not to go too far down the road, right? But the Supreme Court has said that in cases where involving vertical price fixing as a matter of federal law, you're going to evaluate whether the vertical price fixing is illegal, depending on whether it's anti-competitive, and that requires, in some cases, it may require a showing that the company has market power. But still, under many state laws, vertical price fixing is per se illegal, and that is still the case, for example, in California.
Okay. One question actually comes to mind. Actually, I had an interesting conversation with a group of drivers. They kind of contended that, well, Uber is sending me a price, right? And I have the right to decline it. So I am kind of setting my own price by declining it. I disagreed. I don't think it's that, because I always compare us, let's say, to an electrician or a plumber, or who's a true independent contractor who has a right to go back and bid or change his bid or do whatever he needs to do, right? But I think it's a fair question, right? So if Uber or Lyft send me an offer that is trash, which mostly they are, and I decline it, so I'm telling in turn to Uber and Lyft, saying that, well, this is too low, I'm just not going to do it, and I'm just setting my price, right? And so the question I actually promised this gentleman, I think he's here in the chat. So his question is, he says, it seems like his theory, your theory of the case is that drivers aren't truly independent because we cannot set our own prices, and yet I effectively am setting my own price every time I hit the decline button. If another driver underbids me, if we were open to, because Uber had this when AB5 passed, Uber had this, that we could set our own multipliers for about 9 months before a Prop 22 showed up. So he continues asking, if another driver underbids me, how is that price fixing?
Well, so, I mean, Uber and Lyft, they're providing to drivers is the payment to drivers, right? They're not giving drivers any control in any way over the amounts charged to customers, right? And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about vertical price fixing. So that's my first response, right? Which is that what that's getting at is like the amounts that are being paid to drivers, not the amounts that are being charged to customers, right? Which is the fact that Uber and Lyft, require drivers to completely surrender their ability to set their own prices, right? You talk about, electricians and plumbers, for example, who they're deciding what they charge the customers, right? That's not at all what's happening, right, with Uber and Lyft. Now, what I will say on the wage side, right? I agree with you that this is, even if we're just looking at the payments to the drivers, it's also not as a practical matter, what's happening. I mean, first, we know that there's all kinds of coercion on drivers to accept rides, even rides that wouldn't be like profitable to them, and sometimes that happens through incentives, bonuses, or whatever, right? The ways in which the companies say, basically, in order to make ends meet, you're going to need to take the rides that we tell you to take, and furthermore, we know that acceptance rates matter, like in all kinds of ways, right? Like keeping a high acceptance rate can be, depending on the geography, right, can be really critical to getting access to very basic information, including the destination of rides. And we also know in some cases for the companies, keeping an acceptance rate high has been is a critical piece of you need to keep your acceptance rate high in order basically to reach someone in customer service in any sort of any sort of prompt manner, right? So there's all kinds of coercion on accepting rides, even ones that wouldn't be profitable to you. But I'll say that that's sort of not even directly related to the core question, which is a vertical price fixing question, which has to do with what you charge customers, right? And not with what you're being offered to accept yourself.
Yeah, one other thing is that I have read all 30 pages of the TOS every time it comes out, because I like reading, but because I probably have too much time in my hands. But Uber clearly actually says, and Lyft as well, that we as drivers are Uber's customers and the rider is our customer. That's how they get away with all this stuff, right? So if the rider is my customer, why am I not directly negotiating with my customer? Because you're deciding on both sides of the marketplace what to charge and what to pay. So
100%.
if I am This is clear in the TOS, all of you in the chat, 300 whatever of you in the chat, you can go read it. And if you have time, please go read it, educate yourself. Because when Uber pulls themselves out of the equation, because like you said, having the cake and eating it too, right? They pulled themselves out saying, we're just merely an agent. We're just collecting what's in the middle, but we're going to decide on both sides of the marketplace what to charge and what to pay you. However, to be called an independent contractor, you are our customer by using our technology platform, and the rider is your customer. I'm going like, that's not at all what's happening. And on the other point before I forget, as you may know or not know, in many cities in the US, the drivers are still not seeing upfront destinations. Like, for example, a big state like New Jersey. Why do they do that? They do that because they don't want, first of all, if you're a New Jersey driver, pick up a New York, 5 boroughs, you're going to the 5 boroughs as a drop-off, you're not allowed to pick up. You're going to dead mile back. That's why they don't show you where you're going in New Jersey still. That's because, how's any of this kosher? First of all, I truly believe that there should not be any city or any situation that the driver does not know what the job is at hand. In some cities, they still don't know. And as you correctly stated, there are cities that you have to hit a certain threshold and acceptance rate, cancellation rates for you to be able to see the destination. We shouldn't, if we're true independent contractors, at least give us that part. At least tell us what the job is, right? So, I'll give you the floor. We'll have a few more minutes. And where do you think this is going to go? Do you think some 3-letter agency is going to come down on these people and say, hey, man, what's happening is vertical price fixing or antitrust or whatever? Because look, I get 2,000 emails a week and everybody's complaining to a point that about the earnings that they have declined. The companies are, selling some other thing, but we know what's happening. But where do you think this is going to go legally? I think that this MPU video opened a lot of eyes.
Yeah, I think that we, I would hope, right, that we would see even more scrutiny from public enforcers, and that's especially critical, right, because the companies, as we've said, have tried to insulate them from accountability in court through their arbitration clause and class action waiver, right? So, in many cases, that's going to leave this problem up to, as you say, the 3-letter agencies at the state, local, and federal level. And I do think that this is like an urgent problem that, that we need government to take on, right? We've got a business model here of trying to have your cake and eat it too, right? Trying to avoid all kinds of accountability to drivers, denying them minimum wage rights, squeezing them in all kinds of ways based on the fiction of independence, right? When the entire business model is based upon control, right? Like the core fiction that you just highlighted there, Sergio, like that the customers, that the drivers are the customers, and that the riders are customers of the drivers, right? Like it's that's only a you got to leave it up to corporate lawyers and private equity could be the only ones to come up with something like that, right? This is that's not what's happening here, right? No one's setting their own prices. They don't know, in many cases, you don't even know where a ride is going before you're effectively before you have to make a decision about whether to accept it, right? This is gives a business model of control without accountability and without responsibility, and it doesn't fly under our laws. And I think that one thing that we should all be concerned about, whether you're a rider or a customer or whether you've got nothing to do with these companies, right, is how this business model could be exploited, and we could see a labor market characterized by algorithmic control, right, without accountability, control through hidden algorithm without accountability under the laws. And I think that's something we should all be taking extremely seriously. Yes, we all want autonomy. We all want flexibility. Those things are those are in core human needs, right? But when you've got a boss on a smartphone in a hidden algorithm, setting prices for you, denying you independence and denying you opportunity to make decisions on your own, you've got a boss, and it just takes a different form.
Well, the other thing, I can talk to you all day, but our crowd is definitely enjoying this conversation. I highlighted 3 questions, but I am helping a company, actually, another rideshare company with no algorithm, just time and distance launch in the Bay Area. Okay. They are having a very, very difficult time to compete with Uber and Lyft already. We already see it happening in San Francisco because that's where we launched. Uber is lowering what Uber is willing to lose money on every single trip because we're pricing Uber trips. And they are undercutting us already because they know, as small as a tiny thread as we may be, right? They're already trying to put us away by just doing what they're doing. So what they're doing is also anti-competitive. I mean,
Absolutely.
definitely a three-letter agency has to look into this, right? It's anti-competitive.
Absolutely.
We want to come in and compete, but what they're doing, because of their deep pockets, right? They're low. I've seen trips in San Francisco on Uber offered to the rider at $5 for 10 miles because we can't compete with that. And the rider is taking that. But Uber is willing to eat on every single trip, right? Hundreds of thousands of dollars they're going to eat just to put us away because they feel like there could be a threat, which is anti-competitive. There's laws against that. That I know. I'm not a lawyer, but I know there are laws against that.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, is what we call that often is like predatory pricing, right? And that's also been core to Uber and Lyft's business model. How do you like, as they came onto the scene using all their market power, right, to drive, for example, to drive the taxi out of business, to drive any efforts to form, for example, I know efforts to form driver co-ops have been hit with all kinds of market pressures that have made it extremely hard for new entrants to come onto the scene, right? And again, the tools of that, right? The tools of the predatory pricing go back to algorithmic wage discrimination and vertical price fixing. That's the mechanism that Uber and Lyft use to maintain a duopoly that squeezes both consumers and drivers.
Yep. Yeah, duopoly. You said the word duopoly because they don't like competition. And so I'm going to highlight like a couple of questions and one comment. Drivers that are independent can't be punished for not accepting certain rides and have an acceptance rate, which is what's happening now, right? What happens is that if your acceptance rate is low, in fact, they turned that into legal mumbo jumbo now. They have something called advantage drivers versus standard drivers, right? You heard about that new thing? I'm always going to be the disadvantaged driver because I will never accept their trash, right? I mean, in what world? What kind of independent contractor is that? And then a lot of drivers will come to me and say, well, you have the right to decline. I'm like, if I keep declining, I'm not going to get any more offers. I'm not out here to watch YouTube in my car. I'm out here to earn a few bucks, right? And to me, like a lot of these things, when they push back at me, I just, why should I even be punished for declining a trip? That's my true right as an independent contractor to decline trips that are not priced correctly.
I'm not, and I made this reference earlier, and maybe this is something that is familiar to all of you, but it was astonishing to me, and it shouldn't be, right? In light of all the ways in which this business model, is sort of like jaw dropping and concerning. But we heard from a corporate lobbyist that acceptance rates can lead to sort of like a priority status when it comes to customer service calls. Like, so let's say, we all the time, I'm sure you talk to drivers all the time who something happens and they don't get paid amounts that they earned clearly, right? And they end up in this outrageous Byzantine, customer service morass. By the way, they can't go to court, right? Because they got an arbitration clause, right? So, and if their acceptance rate isn't high enough, you know what's going to happen? They're going to have to wait on hold longer. They're never going to get somebody on the phone, right? I mean, it's, what kind of independence and autonomy is that?
Yeah, that is not independent for sure. So this is one of our smarter audience members. This is a decent point, actually. He goes, there's no minimum wage for independent contractors. That I agree with. So if drivers were free to set their own prices, then what's to prevent a total race to the bottom? Decent question. And nothing. But then maybe David knows the legal part of this answer. So
yeah, I mean, I think that what you would see, in some cases, drivers would set prices lower. So for example, one thing that economists we've worked with who have like modeled what would happen if there was any sort of independent price setting have said is that actually what it would do is would place pressure on take rates, right? Yeah. Because if you could set your own prices, then you would set prices lower on platforms where there was a lower take rate, right? Yeah. So you would say, well, today I'm Lyft or some new market entrant is giving me a better take rate. So I'm going to set prices lower on that platform, and that's going to steer customers towards that platform. Now, all of a sudden, we've got the companies competing over take rates. We have them competing over the amount that they're taking from drivers, right? From what they're receiving from riders. That's I think really where the competitive pressure would come. Now, of course, sometimes it would lead to lower prices to capture more customers.
No,
but
I don't know. I have an answer for this, actually. The answer is, you have limited amount of drivers and limited amount of space, okay? I know that at the moment there is oversaturation. Okay, so let the bottom feeders, outbid you, and then you just wait your turn. That's what you do cherry pick right now anyway, Lelius. So you just wait for your turn and set your price, because all those low ballers are going to be gone on trips that are paying pretty much nothing or below the IRS deduction, actually. So, let the marketplace take care of itself, because look, the riders outnumber drivers by, I think, 50 to 60 to 1. They have 160 million riders, and they only have 3 to 4 million drivers in the country. So I don't think that's that big of a deal. And lastly, I'll just put up a comment before we say goodbye to you. Matt is an amazing driver from Massachusetts, actually, Boston. Upfront details of the job should never be a perk. This is basic, necessary information we need to do the job. I 100% agree.
Absolutely, right? Like, this is, core to autonomy is also, transparency, right? The ability to make decisions. That's not happening. Like, the business model, again, depends on control and this sort of like hidden algorithm. That's, I think, fundamentally, the core of what we find, most concerning here about this, business model of control without responsibility. So,
yeah. Well, I want to thank you very much for coming on, obviously, and we'll keep in touch. We always do. Great job on the video, by the way, because you basically completed the thing, because if it was just us looking at our phones, I don't think it would have gone anywhere. But it opened a lot of eyes, and it raised a lot of questions. And thank you for coming on. So much appreciated.
Thank you. One last thing. Go Bills, right?
Go Bills.
Go Bills.
All right.
David, if you're ever in Buffalo, got to get.
Oh, we'll be there. I'll be there. I usually try to come to a game a year. So we'll figure it out. I'll drop you a line, Chris.
All right. Sounds good. Have a good one.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Take care.
All right, thanks for watching. That short little clip was from our live stream, Show Me the Money Club with Sergio and myself, Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Make sure you subscribe, turn on all notifications so you'll be notified when we go live, as well as all of our awesome content. Make sure to check out this video right here, which will take you to the entire live stream, or check out this video right there. All right, drive smart, everyone.